Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. This is going to be a big one here. A lot going on out there. It is the 20th of September here, 2022. Happy Tuesday afternoon to you. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get on with it, shall we? First, National Hurricane Center. We have Fiona over here, Category 3, starting to intensify again. Tropical Depression 8 up here in the central subtropical Atlantic. That'll be, I think, almost certainly Tropical Storm Gaston in just a couple of hours. And then we have Invest Area 98L, well on its way to eventually becoming a depression. And as you can see, that is going to move into the Caribbean Sea, and we're going to really have to watch this, especially as it gets over to the Western Caribbean. But first, there will be impacts for our friends down in the Windward Islands, and we don't want to ignore that. I certainly won't. And then this is so 2022, as they say, this year. Wow, I don't think I have ever seen a south to north area of interest in the eastern tropical Atlantic like that. Very strange. Tropical wave going to come off. There's just virtually no ridging over here, so it's going to turn north. May develop into a named storm briefly between the Cabo Verde Islands right here and the Canary Islands up here. So there you go. But the big area of interest, obviously, well, several of them, Fiona, and then 98L, TD8, eventually Gaston, probably, certainly an issue for shipping interest, but that's about it. In the Eastern Pacific, Madeline is declining, and then a couple of other areas here that have low probabilities of development. Just want to show you that, and a brief look there at the Eastern Pacific. Satellite animation here, courtesy Tropical Tidbits. Well-established outflow in the upper levels of Fiona here, developing that CDO, or Central Dense Overcast. There's an eye showing up. There's our tropical system down here, 98L, and that'll be coming through the Windward Islands here, maybe as far north as Barbados. We'll zoom in just a little bit. I'll show you some of the geography down here. But that's going to be a problem. Some squally conditions, heavy rain, flooding. Please be ready down there. I know I have several followers on YouTube in that region, so heads up. It is coming your way here with 98L. And then here's our TD number 8. Almost certainly a tropical storm now, just looking at the satellite animation. We'll have to watch this. It's very slow moving, but it could end up somewhere. Who knows? And then this is the system coming off Africa that should, strangely enough, turn north like that. So all of a sudden, the Atlantic hurricane season roaring to life, as we speculated it might do because of the erosion. This is at least my theory of some of the ridiculously warm water temperatures up in the far North Atlantic, and just the general change of the seasons. We're almost officially to astronomical autumn or fall, and just the balance is starting to change, and now we're getting some strong tropical cyclones in the Atlantic basin. Denied but not completely, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Delayed but not denied. That's what I should have said. All right, I need cue cards sometimes, right? There is the Central Dense Overcast, as we call it, CDO of Fiona, and then there's the eye there. You can see that upward motion. Definitely battered the Turks and Caicos down here today, still doing so. Finally, less rain. There's still some. Look at that. You can even see how those mountains there bring that moisture and just wring it out. That southerly flow coming across Puerto Rico, still a few showers and occasional heavier bands of rain, and even some over eastern parts of the Dominican Republic here. But Fiona's going to track up here and eventually be quite a nasty and intense hurricane, passing safely away from Bermuda, I'm confident, to where you won't have direct major impacts. But make no mistake, let me get me back on here. When I'm on, it's important, right? This is going to create a huge sea state. Some of the information I've been watching from TAFB, that is the Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch, I highly recommend you follow them on Twitter. I think it's NHC_TAFB, TAFB, easy to find. But they're talking about 45-foot seas out there, and that any ships should just completely stay out of the way. I mean, you would think it'd be obvious, but this is going to be a real big wave generator. And those swells are going to go out eventually towards Florida, the Bahamas, Bermuda, the east coast of the U.S., and yes, the surfers are going to love it. But as it goes north, the wind field is going to expand. Fiona is going to become a Category 4 in all likelihood, and those swells are going to be giant, but pretty darn big, and that could really cause some problems, maybe even some coastal flooding. So pay attention to that, especially in the vulnerable areas of the Outer Banks of North Carolina and other low-lying areas where additional wave setup gives you problems from past events. This could be that. So be on the lookout for that. All right, our interactive map here, just to point out what's going on. Pretty busy. There's the remnants of Madeline basically dying away in the East Pack. Here is Fiona, and that track up into eventually Atlantic Canada up here. And wait until I tell you about that in just a moment. And then here's our TD, almost certainly now a tropical storm, and the name will be Gaston. I don't name them, obviously. That's the National Hurricane Center's responsibility, but satellite imagery looks like it's well on its way there. So let's zoom in down here. First of all, the track of Fiona over the next few days, moving away, thank goodness, from the southeast Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. And if we use our handy-dandy distance calculator here, just depending on how you want to do the angle, there's Bermuda, and then the closest approach, well over 100 miles away from the center of the center. That is what, and I talked about this yesterday, make no mistake, as you saw, Fiona is not a little black circle with a 4 in it. It is a large weather feature. So even though the center would be passing somewhere between these two dots here, these two different time history points, the effects go well out beyond that. I don't think I have to keep saying that, but I just want to remind you, it's going to have a large wind field, and so Bermuda could still receive tropical storm conditions, maybe hurricane force winds at the higher elevations. We'll have to see about that, but certainly some rough seas, especially on the south-facing beaches. And then on the east side, as Fiona goes by, Bermuda, not direct severe impacts, but it's not a nothing either. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's going to be zero. So just pay attention to that. We do have several followers and supporters in Bermuda, and they know what to do. Bermudans are seasoned storm veterans, and why not? They've been dealing with it for centuries. But then after that, this is where it gets like concerning, seriously, for our friends up here in the Canadian Maritimes, Atlantic Canada, specifically Cape Breton up here, which is, and ready for this, where I'm going. I'm getting in the car, actually a truck tomorrow, and I'm driving to Sydney up there, Cape Breton, and we're going to take a bunch of equipment, and we're going to be there for this potentially historic event. And I'll show you why I think that could be the case in just a moment. But this could be really, really bad for this area, the Gulf of St. Lawrence up there, and eastern parts of Nova Scotia, western parts of Newfoundland, the southern-facing shores of Newfoundland. This really has trouble written all over it, and I'll show you why as we move forward. All right, real quick, one of the reasons that it's concerning up here in Atlantic Canada is even though, we'll take the telestration away, I'm going to zoom in on it here, I hope. So even though, come on, work with me here. There we go. I was hoping I could zoom it in and then slide it over, but this is not behaving like I wanted it to. That's okay. Even though Earl, I'll get to my point, carved out this area through here of negative sea surface temperature anomalies right up here in the area where Fiona is expected to track, all along there, those water temperatures are still well above the long-term average, and so it is expected. The guidance is showing it, and it is explicitly shown in the Hurricane Center forecast that Fiona will remain at hurricane intensity. It's going to be moving fast. It will be transitioning. It'll be expanding its wind field, losing the warm core definition, but it'll still pack a major punch up there, and that's why I'm going. It's important to me. This is my job. This is what I do, and this is a rare situation where we can use our equipment to document something potentially historic up there on the eastern portions of Nova Scotia. And there's still time that it could go more east, and it could go more west, maybe closer to Halifax. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the big reason why it looks like it's going to stay fairly intense even that far north. And here's a good look at it on the HWRF model. This is specific for tropical cyclones, the Hurricane Weather Research Forecast model from the 12Z run today. And this is nice. This is the 10-meter wind field and the sea level pressure. Just move this out into time. You can see it gets stronger and stronger. 940s. Finally, it gets even stronger than that as it approaches near the latitude of Bermuda. 937. I mean, wow. this could be very intense, and that's going to generate some significant waves, and those will propagate out again towards the east coast. Stays in the 930s. Man, if this comes to pass, Fiona's going to rack up a lot of ace points. The accumulated cyclone energy score from Fiona could be very high. Now, this is where Bermuda comes into play. You'd have southerly winds if this comes to pass exactly as shown for Bermuda, and the 10-meter winds here, looking at the scale, anywhere from 40, maybe 50 knots. So you can handle that. You guys know that. This is the hurricane force wind area. Again, kudos to Dr. Levi Cowan for coding this up so that we can really make sense of it. But any deviation over to the east or the right of track, if you bring the center up even like that for, who knows? There's still plenty of time. This is 69 hours out. That's enough time. It could be more west as well, and that would push the swells even closer to the United States. But there's nothing that suggests this will make a sudden turn. I want to make that very clear. This is not going to make direct impacts on the United States mainland. But Bermuda, there is still time that this could edge closer, and my choice not to go to Bermuda could come back to bite me. We shall see. But right now, it looks like it goes on past. And then, true on the backside of it, the southwesterly flow, you could be looking at close to 64 knots, which is hurricane force. So between 50 and 60 knots with some squalls perhaps, and big, big seas there. That could be a big problem. Hopefully our man Howard over there can document some of that for us if he is so inclined. All right? Howard's like, I'll think about it. Then it starts to transition pretty quickly as we get into the afternoon Friday, and then it makes its way up here into Canada and Atlantic Canada. And here is the Cape Breton area, and Sydney sits right in here, I do believe. And then this is the Gulf of St. Lawrence up here. And look at that pressure. It starts to dip down. Why does it do that? Now it's starting to get baroclinic forcing, which is difficult to explain, but it is the atmosphere starting to act on that energy and squeeze out even more energy. So it deepens it, kind of like what happened with Hurricane Sandy. It's a transition process where it becomes an intense, ridiculously intense, extratropical mid-latitude cyclone with some warm core features as it spreads out, big-time wind field, getting up there. It comes right across the eastern parts of that peninsula, and I would have equipment set up all through here to the best of our ability. We got a long drive ahead of us. It's about 30 hours from Wilmington to Sydney in Nova Scotia if you're playing along at home. So very concerning for our friends up there in Atlantic Canada as this comes up. And it doesn't look like it moves very fast either. Ugh. So we're going to have our work cut out for us. And you folks up there, a real big problem potentially coming your way at just under between 4 and 5 days out. All right, elsewhere, just real quick, a look at some of the models. This is the GFS. Highlight it right there for you. 12Z run. Again, for our friends in Bermuda, I'm going to leave Bermuda highlighted with the crosshairs there. Fiona passes fairly comfortably to the northwest of Bermuda, and then it makes the turn and goes on up into Atlantic Canada, as we talked about. Now, we start to focus on this, 98L, 90 hours out. And I know everybody's watched this all the way through, and I'm just going to show you real quick at day 5, day 6, day 7. This gets into the position in the Caribbean where it could be a major problem. Our friends in the Caymans, Adam, yes, Adam, it's coming, buddy. Be ready. Even our friends in Jamaica, we got several people. A lot of people. YouTube's a great thing. You can reach a lot of folks, and they'll be watching this video, and we have to monitor the progress of this very carefully. Looks like it could go right over the Cayman Islands there. And just to show you the potential here, this is the upper level wind pattern. It does not get much more favorable than that. Massive upper anticyclone sitting over the top, and upper level Tutlow sitting to its east to help evacuate that air out and dissipate it. Trough coming in to evacuate the air on the northeast side, and then equator bound wind flow down here. I'm just like, we really need to watch this closely. Obviously, the first part is the windwards, Trinidad, Tobago, and vicinity, maybe Jamaica, maybe the Caymans. We got plenty of time to see where it ends up. But the pattern is such that if it does end up in the Gulf of Mexico, it could be a major, major problem going down the road. The Euro echoes that as well. We can look at this out 24-hour increments. Fiona goes by, and then there's our system at days 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Day 7 is where we will end it, approaching the western tip of Cuba. I'm only laughing at my blunder. This is a very serious situation. It also does pass close to the Cayman Islands. There's days 5, there's day 6, there's day 7. See, I was able to fix that. And then, you know, we have to watch it so closely from there. The season absolutely far from over, and this is extremely, I mean, I'm going to say it, it's concerning. Water temperatures warmer than normal down here by almost a degree Celsius, all through the potential track where this could go over the next 10 days. Nothing but abnormally warm water, untouched, unfettered by any other systems as of late. So after Fiona, we will have all hands on deck, all eyes on that system down there. If the TD8 becomes Gaston, this will become Hermine, just so you know. And for those of you that know my history, 6 years ago, my encounter with that iteration of Hermine, remember they use the names every 6 years. They get recycled unless they are notable and they get retired. Hermine in 2016 did not get retired. So this would be Hermine 2022, and I feel like, oh, we meet again. And I think this time the results are going to be quite a bit more amplified. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, go look up, I'll put a link to it in the description, our Tracking the Hurricanes 2016 documentary. Hermine and Matthew that year. Hermine was, well, I'll just let you watch it if you haven't seen it, up in Cedar Key. That was something else. All right. On YouTube, it has grown a lot over the last few days, a lot in our world anyway. Several hundred new subscribers. I appreciate that. Your support just by watching and sharing is absolutely wonderful. I appreciate it. It also helps us to grow what we're doing, and that's appreciated as well. If you want me to keep doing this, then subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button so you get notified when we upload videos or when we're going live. And, you know, let the algorithm do what it does by liking and sharing with your friends, family, colleagues, whoever. We appreciate it, all of us at HurricaneTrack. We have a good back-end team. Our Patreon support group, we're all a great community. And this potentially dangerous pattern, you know, I try not to be fearmonger, hype, you know, clickbait titles or whatever. There's a lot of that with everything that goes on in the news, not just the weather. And when I say something like that, when I ask Kari, make me a graphic that says potentially dangerous pattern, I absolutely mean it. And it is the full gamut of impacts in these next days here, week to 10 days, could be the defining 10 days of the entire 2022 hurricane season. And we still have all of October to get through after this, just so you know. All right. Let me get this online for you. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I am Mark Suttoth for HurricaneTrack. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.